you have what you need in your evasion kit, your bug out bag, whatever it might be, to meet all your water needs. Welcome back to Modern Warrior Project channel. I'm Shane, and that's exactly what we're going to cover today. Right here is everything that I include, and it's not just about water filters, it's about the entire water process and water needs on the move. That's what we're going to cover in this video, and if you wait until the end of the video, I'm going to share with you one of the most primitive techniques you can utilize to filter and purify your water as a little extra tip. So first off, before we get into the actual specifics of equipment, let me talk about my mindset and process. One of the first things I consider is water in general. I don't want to move out into an evasion situation or anything like that without any kind of water on me. I've been in certain types of scenarios like that where I didn't have water and you have to procure it, and sure, you might have the means, you might even have filtration items available, but it's a rough time in between there and getting water, especially when you're very thirsty and you're trying to do rigorous activity. So the first place I start is what water I'm going to take with me. And one of the things that I, and you should as well, consider is water's heavy. So I don't need to go carrying around 10 gallons of water, because that's weight, and weight does matter. But I do want to have a certain amount with me. So for me, what that equates to is I have one water bottle. This water bottle, the bottle itself, will serve me well in a number of varieties, a number of manners out in the wild after I use it, and the most base of which is a water container, right? The other water that I would actually be carrying on me is 2 liters in my Camelback hydration bag, whatever it may be. So this 2-liter bladder goes inside a sleeve in my Eni bag, and the straw comes out through a hole here so I can actually drink it on the move. So that done, now I've got the water that I'm carrying on me, and I have 2 additional containers that I can refill with water for movement purposes or just to drink. But I can't drink non-potable water directly from this without some additional methods. Okay, so now I've got the water I'm carrying with me taken care of. So my next thought is procuring and acquiring water out in the wild. So obviously I've got some containers here, but I also may want a container to carry it a longer distance or a little bit more water all at once. That's where I carry a number of just large black trash bags in my bag. They serve a number of purposes in survival situations, but one of them could be a water container. Now I'm not going to fill up a 55-gallon trash bag, but I can easily put a couple gallons in here and carry it over a distance. Relatively simple, and it's much better than making 15 trips, with a water bottle down to the creek if I'm in some kind of a stationary location. So, large trash bag. Now back to the procuring water. You may come across a water source, and we'll get to that. That's where our filters and purification systems come in. But what if there's not a water source out there? A couple ways that I can do that, that I can acquire water. One is via a transpiration bag. So I keep a couple of transpiration bags. They're basically just a clear plastic bag, and if you're not familiar with the system, I'll give you a real quick rundown, but you can look it up. It's basically, I'm going to take a bag, I'm going to put it over some non-poisonous leafy type vegetation, tree branch, kind of tie it off, and transpiration is going to cause water over time with the sun beating down on that to gather up in that bag. It's definitely not the fastest way to get water, but in a pinch it is a way to get water. So I've got that in there. It takes up no space, and I could probably use those bags for something else if I needed to, and it came across a need in the wild. Another thing that I can utilize for getting water is a seep well. Now, seep wells can be obtained in most places, and what a seep well is where I'm going to utilize the earth itself to filter the water for me. So what you do is you find a water source. It can even be murky or muddy water, and I'm just going to offset from that water source a decent distance, and I'm going to dig a shallow hole or a decent sized hole. I'm going to try and get below the water table, and the water will seep in there, and the water that seeps in there should be palatable. Potable, sorry, not palatable. Palatable and potable aren't always the same thing, but it should be potable. Excuse me. Now, the distance is an important thing here. It depends on the type of soil and everything else. So that's not gonna necessarily strain. It will not strain out chemicals or anything like that. We're talking about in a wooded type area where you don't have these things, and you need to guard this water source, because if an animal comes and drinks from it or urinates in it or anything like that, it's contaminated. If it rains and wash off falls in there, it's contaminated. So all these things you need to take into consideration. As far as you learn a little bit more than just this little brief talk here, but the distance is kind of determined by the soil. Sandy soil, I need to have a further distance. Clay soil is shorter, because that soil that it's seeping through is what's filtering the water itself. So an e-tool, among many other things, will help to serve that purpose. And all of these things can help me to procure water if I don't have an actual, traditional water source. And then there's other methods you can use that, a lot of this comes to training and experience and knowledge. And obviously you're invested in that because you're watching this. Things such as, I want to say it was a Native American tribe that used to use a technique where they would tie bandanas all around their legs, and they would walk through the tall grass in the morning, and those bandanas will collect dew. Then you wring out that dew, and that's drinkable water as well. So I don't keep bandanas for that purpose. That would be a laborious way to do it, but it wouldn't necessarily be a bad way if you're moving anyway. So there's a lot of different methods to procure water. So that's the next station in my thought process as I consider what goes into my bag for my water needs. Now we're moving on to my filters and purification methods that I carry. So the tried and true methodology that I am a big fan of, especially if I'm stationary and I have time and I'm not necessarily trying to keep a low visibility, is boiling water. So you want to have some kind of a metal pot or cup that you can boil your water in, and this is a very safe, good method for treating my water. Obviously, I've got a water container here as well. Now, of note, boiling water, that's not necessarily going to filter it, but it's going to be safe to drink, but it might be murky, clumpy, and everything else. So one of the techniques you can do, you can build a makeshift filter, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in the end. But another thing, and to be honest with you, and I use this same method when I'm treating water with tablets, so I'll go ahead and share it with you now. What I typically would do if I'm going to take, even from stagnant standing water, and you have moss and stuff on the top, is I'll take the bottle, I'll put the bottom of the bottle at the top surface of the water, and I'll start moving it around. What you'll do is that algae and everything else will start to blossom out. Once it gets out to a fair amount of distance, I'll then quickly push my cup or bottle or whatever it is underneath the water surface. Quick note here, you want to make sure it goes fully below the water surface, because when you're right there at the crest, when the water starts entering, it's going to suck everything on the surface towards your bottle. So you want to get below that quickly, otherwise you're going to pull that algae right back in there. Once you get a few inches below the water, you're getting pretty clean water at that point as far as debris. And so typically if I'm moving through the woods and I'm using these types of methods, I'll just do that, pop it down there, get the water in there. It's good enough for me. And I'll throw some tablets in and let it treat and drink it later. So now let's talk about the tablets. So I carry two types of tablets. This right here is 20 tablets. I want to say each one does a liter or 2 liters. So I think it's a liter. So it's 20 liters of water worth right here. These particular tablets take 4 hours to purify or to treat the water. So if I throw a couple in my 2 liter container up here, I'm looking at 4 hours before I can drink that water. So not my favorite method, but if you're stationary and you're leaving camp, certainly an option, and it's just another thing that's light and easy for me to throw in there, and it slides right in behind that bladder, as a matter of fact, and it's an easy thing to carry. The other tablets, there's numerous types of water tablets on the market. I want to say in the military school, when we went through the survival school, it was iodine, some type of an iodine tablet that we used. Of note, on tablets in general, if you have an iodine allergy or a shellfish allergy, make sure you check the tablets that you're using, because iodine is derived from shellfish, I believe. But I know you can't, if you have a shellfish allergy, you can't use those tablets. I don't have a shellfish allergy, so I don't have to check. But so the other tablets I use right here, I think are called Coughlin's, and these are a 30-minute treatment window, which is the same with iodine, if I remember right. So these only take 30 minutes, so I can pop one of these in here. It takes 2 tablets, I think a liter for this. Pop a couple of them in here, 30 minutes later, my water is good to drink, and I'm good to go. So I like this, a very small bottle. This will treat quite a bit of water, keep me going for a while. Now moving on to my filter purifiers in the same, you know, kind of my other 2 filters, if you will. So I have a Lifestraw. If you're not familiar with Lifestraw, it's a filter treatment right built into one. Uses a hollow membrane in there to pull the water through. This is, you can drink this right out of the pond, right out of the puddle or whatever. Interesting story, when I was active duty, when Lifestraw were first coming out, they had a rep come to our unit, and he brought one, and he asked, and I was there, and he said, hey, you want to try it? And they had a dirty mop bucket full of dirty water. And so that's how we demonstrated it, or how they had us demonstrate it, is we just sucked dirty water out of a mop bucket with these things. They work good, and you couldn't tell. It didn't taste like dirty mop water. So you couldn't tell. It actually works well. The drawback, or actually let me compare them to each other when I talk about the next one. My other one and my final one that I keep is a Lifestraw Sawyer, I'm sorry, not Lifestraw, a Sawyer Mini filter. So I keep this in this little bag here. I'm a bigger fan of the Sawyer Mini filter. So the history of these two, I want to say Lifestraw was primarily built and created for, you know, quick, disposable, passing out during emergencies, and they do an amazing job. So where the Sawyer is built more around a backpacker's mentality, and it's for that reason and a lot of those reasons that I like it. It's got, I want to say Lifestraw's 4,000 gallons, Sawyer Mini's 100,000 gallon capacity. I'm not going to outdrink this filter, provided something else doesn't happen to it. So a couple things that I like over the Sawyer versus the Lifestraw. The Lifestraw has to, and they have some other models out there now, but the typical traditional Lifestraw, you have to drink from the source. So I have to drink right out of the pond, or I have to put it in a container and drink out of the container, and it uses a good bit of suction to drink. Any of them are going to use some, but I find the Lifestraw takes more suction, in my opinion, than the Sawyer Mini. A couple things I love about the Sawyer Mini. One, it comes with its own little bag here, so I've got a water container that it can screw right on. I can drink from it. You can also screw onto a bottle. The filter can screw directly to a bottle. I can drink from it. And even to make it even better, it can also tap in, and I can hack it into my water bladder and drink directly from that with the filter attached. So much more versatile, much more around the mindset of the on the move that I'm trying to use it for. And so the Sawyer Mini is by far my #1 recommendation as far as for me and my bag. Another thing I like about the Sawyer is that you can back flush it. So it even has a syringe, so you can back flush the filter and help clean out the gunk. I want to say with Lifestraw, they recommend do it with air. So I can do push clean water through this thing and clean out the gunk on the filter. Makes it a little easier, because the more gunk, the harder it is to filter the water through. So that covers everything that I'm throwing into my bag and my mental process on water for an evasion type situation where I'm using my bag. As I told you, if you wait till the video, I'm going to share one more method with you. So in the event that you have nothing else on you, nothing else, and you just have a clear bottle and you have access to water, you're still not out of luck. You can drink, you can still get you some palatable water, potable, like it's twice in this video, potable water with this method. If you're not familiar with it, it's called the solar disinfection method. So basically, and this was created, I want to say, and established for third world countries and where they just don't have a lot of stuff available. So all you need to do is you kind of rip off the paper on this thing. You're going to take you some water, you're going to put it in the sun and through a clear bottle and expose it to sunlight for at least 6 hours. And then that water is going to, the sun's going to do the work for us. And then you've got some potable water to keep you going. So worst case scenario, you don't have anything on you. If you can find a clear plastic bottle, you can still keep going, still keep obtaining your objectives. So that's it. This is I think I covered everything. I'd love to hear what your choice in filters and your general thought process in the comments as far as how you stack and pack your bag for this particular need. Once again, thank you for watching. Please hit a like, subscribe, and hit the bell for notifications, and we'll keep making them. Until next time.